You know you are meant for more, a higher ceiling, and a floor that is strong enough to hold it. That's your belief system talking, and this is the subconscious work, the 95% that makes growth feel inevitable. It works in any business, any facet of life. We built you a free 3-minute quiz to show you where the gaps are and what is possible for you. It's fast, it's honest, it's fun, and it might surprise you. If you already know that Outspoken is for you, join us. The next cohort kicks off in August. Both links are in the show notes. Welcome to the Own Your Choices, Own Your Life podcast. You've landed in the right place to learn how to own your story, release subconscious beliefs, rewire your mind, and step into the impact you know you're here to create. Through Outspoken Publishing and NLP certifications, we share the tools and subconscious shifts that expand your voice, your message, your confidence, and your leadership. I am your host, Marsha Van Weinsberg, NLP trainer, speaker, author, and publisher. I am thrilled you are here. Let's get started. Welcome back to the show. Today we are speaking with Kelly-Anne and Jacqueline, who are sisters and co-hosts of the podcast Finding True North, where they explore the intersection of human design, mindset, and spiritual growth. Kelly-Anne is an empowerment coach and soul mindset mentor who guides women through the transitions of midlife and beyond. Her work is rooted in the belief that midlife is not a crisis, but an initiation into a more aligned and authentic way of living. As the founder of Soul Circle, she creates space for honest, meaningful connection, supporting women in releasing limiting beliefs, building self-trust, and stepping into their queen era. Yes, please. Jacqueline is a human design specialist trained through Erin Claire Jones certification program. She brings a grounded, practical approach to human design, helping individuals understand how they are uniquely designed to make decisions, use their energy, and move through life with greater ease. She also works with clients to apply human design within relationships and teams, creating more understanding, communication, and alignment. Together, they create conversations that feel like sitting down with two sisters, real, insightful, and deeply supportive, helping listeners move from self-questioning to self-trust and alignment. This was such a fun conversation where we went into all aspects of human design, understanding human design, how you can use it to work to your advantage in your business. And it's about coming back to who you are versus being inside of a box. We went deep in the conversation, and it's also really fun to say that both Kelly-Anne and Jacqueline are authors in our upcoming Everybody Holds a Story, Volume 2. We were able to support them in their chapters, and it's so fun to see two sisters in the book and sharing their stories. I am so excited today. I have two guests on the show and two guests who we have intersected paths many times over the last few years. And coming up, they are two authors in our upcoming collaborative book, Everybody Holds a Story, Volume 2. So there's a lot of different directions we can take this show today, but I'm thrilled to have you both here, Kelly-Anne and Jacqueline.
We are thrilled to be here, Marsha.
Yes,
I
we are.
love chatting with you.
Well, first off, before we even started, because we were like, there's so many ways that this can go. You both also have taken human design, right? We're going to go into a little bit of human design. You are published authors coming up in the release of this book, and you have a podcast together, which is beautiful. I did not say you're sisters, but I am going to say that because you are. But I would love it. Kelly-Anne, would you just give a little bit of an intro as to who you are, and then the same Jacqueline, and then we're going to dive right in.
Sure. Yeah. Well, my name's Kelly-Anne Appleton, and I am a retired educator. Spent 25 years as a teacher and left teaching early to go into some coaching, which, Marsha, you were my very first coach, leading me on that journey. And so studied under Bob Proctor and really, love all things mindset. And so have been doing that. Actually ended up getting my real estate license You will learn that as a manifesting generator, I do all the things. I have not had a straight line in my life. It has had many pivots, many turns. That's part of my human design. And so now, the real estate is a part-time thing. The coaching is for midlife women is what I'm really excited about now. And human design has played a really important part in that.
Mhm.
So I learned about it probably, actually, I think it was through you um, years ago,
Mhm.
and then have come back to it as Jacqueline kind of started diving into it, have come back to it and just really fully embraced it again.
I love that. I'm already writing questions down. It's I'm thrilled to have you here. Okay, Jacqueline, tell us about you.
Well, some of my story is similar to Kelly-Ann's. I was also an educator, and I left teaching quite a few years ago now. I am also in real estate. So that's kind of where it ends, though. But we are sisters. And similar to Kelly-Ann, though, I have always been what we call a seeker. I've always been looking for answers, oftentimes outside of myself, and have found some great coaches, some great thinkers, and I'm all about finding out information. I'm a 1-3 profile line in human design, which means that I'm all about investigating, and I definitely have done that. But what has brought me to human design is that I realized that the answers were not outside of me, that the answers were actually inside of me, and that I needed to have more trust in myself. And human design was the framework that allowed me to start seeing that for all my quirks and for all my strengths. And I now am a human design. I call myself an educator and a guide because I love to teach. But I also love to guide people, especially women, to understand their human design and to embody it, to actually live it, not just have a session and find out about it and say, oh, is that interesting? But actually to use it, play with it, experiment with it, and have it make a difference in your life like it has in mine.
Oh, thank you so much for sharing that. You said something there that, this piece about like learning about yourself and embodying it. And there's still so many people that I cross paths with that they're like, wait, what's that? What's human design? And I'm like, oh, you've never heard that? Like, I'm almost surprised that people haven't heard of it, but they haven't. Or then you have the other camp of like, well, that puts people in a box. And I would love to hear your thoughts on if you could explain like to a brand newbie, what is human design and is it meant to put someone in a box?
Well, the short answer is no, it's not meant to put someone in a box. It is a framework. It relies on a whole bunch of different philosophies. It takes some I Ching, it takes some chakra, it takes some astrology. It is based on the time and place you were born. And it gives you this, and Kelly and I always talk about it being this multi layered information that doesn't put you in a box, but allows you to give yourself permission to live through your design. And we always say, I mean, it's nothing to believe in, it's nothing you have to, prescribe to. Take what resonates and leave the rest. There's parts of my chart that I kind of think sometimes maybe. But then there's parts of my chart that I think that is me. And that is something that I have thought my whole life that I have never realized. So no, it does not put you in a box. It is not, this is who you are and this is who you have to be. It is, this is who you are and play with that.
Mhm.
And this is the design you were born with. But that does not mean that you're limited in any way by what your chart says.
And Jacqueline and I have always said that it's really human design is not learning more about yourself or learning something new about yourself, I should say. It's more about understanding things and putting words to things you've always known.
Mm.
It's a validation piece. Some people say, well, I don't believe in human design. It's not a belief system. It's a tool. like so many other tools that we use. A tool that we have found has given us permission to be who we've always been, has actually, for both of us, I would say, I don't want to speak for Jacqueline, but I think she would agree with this, has actually allowed us to release some deep-seated limiting beliefs that we carried all our life that we now have allowed ourselves to let go of because we understand it in a different way, that it's part of our design. So in that way, it just is such a beautiful tool. And as we always, say, take what feels good
Mhm.
and leave the rest. It's not prescriptive. It's just an invitation to explore yourself. And, as seekers, that's what we've been doing for decades, is exploring ourselves.
Yeah, what you're both saying is resonating like so deeply in the fact that that's something I have felt in the last few years. Is just really learning more about myself and how I work. And, all of a sudden I do feel like I'm getting to know myself even more when it comes to this work. There is one that rings true for me. I'm curious for each of you, what limiting belief has human design allowed you to release?
Well, for me, I believed my whole life that I was a quitter. And that kept me from doing a lot of things in my life. I believed that when things got hard, I walked away from them. And I had lots of evidence to support that. As a kid, I started taking lessons and then I would stop doing that and do something else. I've had a number of careers. When I was teaching, I was always looking for something on the side to keep myself busy. And I felt like it was that I just couldn't stick with anything. And as you know, Marsha, a limiting belief like that keeps you playing small and you believe it. And that's what I believed. I was a quitter. So don't ask me to do anything hard because I'm probably not going to be able to do it. And so I kept myself from doing things. When I learned in human design that my type was a manifesting generator, that I was meant to be multi-passionate, that I was meant to pivot in life, that I was only meant to do things that lit me up. And when they didn't light me up anymore, I was meant to move to something else. Oh my gosh, that was so liberating to me because I realized that wasn't something that was wrong with me, even though I thought it was. That was actually who I was designed to be. So choosing to not call myself a quitter anymore, but to call myself multi-passionate, I released that belief immediately.
And how much lighter does that feel?
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
What a difference. What a difference. Yes.
Interesting. And Jacqueline, what about yours?
Well, for me, there's many, but the one that comes to mind first is that I believed up until, I would say, 2 or 3 years ago, that I was lazy, that I didn't really have the energy to stick with things. I would rather have rested than worked a lot of times. I was kind of a lazy mother. I didn't have the energy that other mothers had. I didn't want all kids around my house all the time, those kinds of things. I thought I was a lazy wife, um, probably a lazy sister, a lazy friend. So I really believed that I was lazy and that there was something wrong with me because I just didn't have the energy a lot of times to do things that other people seem to do easily. So there was something wrong with me. And I realized when I learned my human design that I'm a manifester, which is about 9% of the population. And manifester, their energy works very differently. Their energy comes in ebbs and flows. They are not meant to be on all the time. They are meant to rest. Rest is very important. They initiate, but then they sometimes step away. And for me, I thought, this whole time I have thought to myself, I have beat myself up about being lazy and tried so hard to outdo that I'm going to really do this. At my job, I'm going to be there till 5 o'clock at night, and I'm going to do this, and I'm going to show people that I'm not lazy. And I wasn't lazy.
What you're both sharing is hitting because you also, as you know, like you cannot outwork something you don't believe is possible. And the limiting belief doesn't have to make sense to anyone else. It's truth to us. And that's what mine was forever, that I'm so late. I'm too late. I'm too late. And I was probably thinking I was too late like 30 years ago. And when I learned my profile was 4-6, as a sacral generator, I was like, oh, so I'm not late. And like, I'm actually meant to share more. Oh, I'm meant to live it first and share it. And I'm like, oh, that's funny because I've been doing that my whole life. Like, that was when I started to see little pieces that started to make sense. But releasing that limiting belief, I think, was incredibly important. It still shows up. We all know that they still show up, but understanding that that's how we're built. So you explain what a manifestor is. Can you explain between the other profiles what they are? You take
Yeah,
turns,
so
however.
we'll start with the generator. So the generator is the majority of the population are generators, and they are, as I always say to people, I love me the generators, because as a manifestor, I need their energy.
Mhm.
They are the light force.
Mhm.
They are those people that when they are doing something that lights them up, they have energy galore. Um, they are the buzz people, the people that you're around, that you can feel the energy, you can feel their electricity. Although generators say, oh, I'm just a generator, like I'm just meant to work. No, they are meant to produce this amazing electricity, this energy for the rest of us, for the non-sacrals. And as I said, I love me the generators. And then we have Kelly-Anne, who is,
Yeah, a manifesting generator who also has that generator energy. So is a doer, but is not meant to live a linear life, is meant to pivot. When things don't light you up anymore, you're meant to move to something else. They also tend to do things quickly. So we are quick, and sometimes that can be, an issue for the people around us because we expect other people to be able to function the same way. Um, so manifesting generators are meant to be multi-passionate and to move from one thing to the other.
Mhm. Okay.
and they're kind of a combo between a manifestor and a generator. They have some of the uh, traits of both.
And
Right.
and
So
they a lot of the population, right? The two of them.
Yes, about 74%.
Okay.
are part that generator. So the manifesting generator also has some of those manifestor characteristics like Jacqueline was talking about. So they can initiate, but they can also do the work. So they're a little bit different than a generator in that. But the majority of the world has that generator energy. And that is what the world expects, is that the world is set up for generators. So that's why some of the other types that Jacqueline will talk about can struggle a little bit because the world is not set up for them.
So then you have your projectors, and they're about 20% of the population. So I guess generators and manifesting generators are about 70%. So about 20% are projectors, and they do not have access to consistent energy. They ebb and flow. They definitely need rest. Rest needs to be prioritized for projectors. Projectors are those people that can see through people. They can see through even like institutions and frameworks. They just know, they have a knowing. They make great guides, but they definitely need that rest. And that is daily. They need to basically build in rest in their day because of that energy. Their energy is they need to protect their energy. It is very selective, and they need kind of permission almost because their energy is very strong. They need to make sure that the person that they are giving their energy to is open to it. But as I said, they are guides. A lot of coaches are projectors. They can really see people, and they need validation of being seen. That's one of their big needs as projectors. Then we have the manifestors, of which I am, and they're about, sometimes some literature says 7%, some says up to 9%. And they are the initiators. They have a closed aura, so they're not, the generators are open and warm. Manifestors tend to be a little bit more closed, a little even more selective than the projectors. They are here, as I said, to initiate, and they do not have consistent access to energy either. But theirs ebbs and flows in a bit of a different way than projectors. Manifestors, they can work perhaps like for days on a project and have very, very intense energy, and then just kind of disappear and need to just totally decompose. Not decompose, decompress. Hopefully not decompose. That would be that would be very good rest. Very good rest.
Very good rest. We don't go for perfect here, just so you know.
Right. So that's, and they are, basically the main thing is the energy. When we talk about the types, the 5 types, it is basically the way they use their energy, because there's all these different other layers. So it's basically, when we talk about types, it's just how they best use their energy and the access they have to energy. And then we have the reflectors, who are about 1% of the population. So they are very rare. In our sessions, I don't think we've met a reflector. We had someone whose child was a reflector, and they were asking some questions about that. And their energy is very inconsistent. They are sensitive. They are basically like a mirror to their environment. So they are highly sensitive to everything. They take on the energy of a space or a person that they are in. So you can imagine that is a challenge. I mean, reflectors, it's challenging to, as Kelly-Anne said, in a world where consistent energy is honored, reflectors can have a very challenging time because their energy is so dependent on who they are around. But they are great. They reflect back the condition or the experience that everybody else has. So they are like the disco balls of the world.
I've met 3 actual reflectors. The one that I met was the first one that I met. It was right when I was learning human design. And she was talking about how, when she went into a room, like she goes, it was just beyond draining is an understatement. She goes, I must be an introvert. And we got into some great conversations, but I was in the point of learning a little bit more about my human design. I'm like, what's your human design? She's like, what's that? And as we started to look at it, she was a reflector. And it was so fascinating to learn about that, especially as a sacral generator here, where I make decisions or I don't. I'm like, she's like, well, I have to sit in a decision for like technically sometimes 28 days before I can ever make a decision. I'm like, oh, that would be torture. Torture. The torture. That's so fascinating. And then you have the types, right? You've got the different types.
Yeah, those are the 5 types. That we
5
just
types.
talked.
What's the numbers mean for newbies? Like, so for example, you've got like you said you were a 1-3. What are you, Kelly-Anne?
I'm a 2-4.
A 2-4, and I'm a 4-6. What's a brief overview of what those numbers mean?
I'm going to let Jacqueline take this one. She's the real expert.
Well, I don't know about that. I am, as I said, I am a 1-3, and a 1-3 is an investigator. So a 1. So the numbers are, your profile is basically, it's made up of 2 numbers.
Mhm.
There are 6 different profiles. I'll go through quickly the profiles. Hopefully I can remember all the names of them. And the first number is usually what you resonate most with. If someone says this is who you are, like as a personality,
Mhm.
you would say, yeah, that's me. The second number is more your subconscious. So, and it could also be what other people see in you. You might not resonate so much with it, but other people may say, yes, that definitely is you.
Okay.
And most of the time they are at odds, because that's the human condition, right? We're always in the balance. So 1 is the investigator. They want to know more. They're always finding out information. They're the ones that go down the rabbit holes. You talk about something and they're off, doing all the research. Number 2s are the hermits, also called the naturals. And they do like their alone time, but they also are usually very innately talented and don't recognize their talent. And it comes very easily to them. So others are often jealous of the twos because they have this innate talent that they're kind of like, oh, anybody can do it. The threes are, the name is the martyr, which I don't really love, but they are the experimenters, the people that make all the mistakes and learn from the mistakes, hopefully. So you can see how there we have like a 1-3. The one are the researchers finding out all the information, and then the threes are the ones that are making all the mistakes. So they don't really match up. The fours are the connectors. Yeah, they are all about their community, and not a widespread community. It can be a very small community, but that's where they just feel the best, and that's where they find their opportunities, and those are their people. Like they are very much those people where these are my people. These are they get me, and they are they're those connectors and all about community. The fives are the problem solvers, so they are the ones that can kind of see through things. They're the ones that often people go to when they have a problem, just instinctively. They see the big picture, and they know. They just have this knowing about them. The number sixes, like you, Marsha, they are they're amazing because they have their life is actually divided into 3 sections, and they grow into their 6. And they spend the first 30 years as a 3. So they are the experimenters making all the mistakes, learning trial and error. Then they have what they call sitting on top of the roof, where they basically start to integrate all the things that they have learned. And then, kind of after 50, which is a beautiful time, they then all of a sudden have all this wisdom because they have lived through all the trial and error. They have integrated all the lessons, and then they have this amazing wisdom. So they are like the sages that we are graced with.
I might have some people who disagree with me, but I love that, the sages. Oh my gosh, I love how you've explained that, because I think the thing that has been very fascinating in the last little bit is, yes, learning about yourself. And then also, like, if you have a collaboration, so we have a mastermind where in Heartwired CEO, for example, Meg and I, when we first started working together, we actually put our human design in together. And it's like, what does this look like together? And it was also so interesting in the beginning. I think there's probably parts of it that I don't want to say that we resisted, but it was just like, okay, how does that work? And what do we do? So our first year together, we fumbled a lot. We fumbled a lot of trying to figure things out. Second year is like the stride piece. It feels like it. It's like, no, that's your lane. And like she owns that lane, but this one's mine. And that's been, honestly, some of it has come from human design of learning how can you work together with your strengths. Is that something that the two of you have really been able to do? Because you also have a podcast together, which is really cool. So I'm just curious what it looks like when you're combining and looking at people and how their makeup is.
Yeah, I mean, definitely Jacqueline and I, obviously our types are different, and our profile lines are different. And so we both bring different gifts to the table, which is great. And obviously, Jacqueline being a manifester and not being a great initiator, but not so much maybe being able to continue on with something. It's amazing that I have that gift. So with the podcast, Jacqueline said to me, why don't we start a podcast? So the initiation, that was her.
Oh.
And so because I trust her as an initiator, now that I know that she's a manifester, not that I didn't trust her before, but because she has great ideas. So that was her idea. But probably what we've maybe noticed through is that I'm kind of taking over more of the work parts of it, because I can do the work. That's natural for me to do the work. So she's obviously shows up there with the conversations and everything. But then I do the recording. I get it sent out to Sue. I do those kind of parts of it. I do the advertising for it. So that's where it's really played out well for her and I to do that. And, sometimes I'll come up with an idea and she'll be like, yeah, I don't think I want to do that. So It's very much being, as you say, Marsha, like that first kind of figuring out, okay, what can we actually do here that we both feel good about? And how can we mesh that into something that is going to work?
Hmm. Learning how to work together like this and blending part of the human design was such a big eye opener that I was like, okay, I understand. I think when you talk about what you said in the beginning, Jacqueline, like embodying part of who you are instead of fighting it. And it's so funny as we find that lane. Yesterday, Meg said to me, I've got the agenda all done for Heartwear. And I'm like, perfect. And somebody's like, are you okay with her doing that? I'm like, I'm thrilled. Thrilled. It's awesome. That's just not my lane, but I can do other things. And I just love this piece of learning how to work together. Of course, because I have the two of you here, I'm probably going to ask you some questions that also, maybe reflect a little bit of what I'm learning. But before I do that, I want to ask you, so tell everyone about your podcast.
So, our podcast is called Finding True North, and we just recorded episode 35.
Oh my gosh, amazing.
So we call ourselves small but mighty. We've been very consistent, which has been amazing. We combine human design, mindset, and some spirituality.
Mm.
So it's not just human design, but obviously the human design parts, there's so many layers. There's a lot to talk about. So that has maybe taken over at this point quite a bit of the episodes, but we do talk about other things too. So we're kind of loving it. We have a pretty dedicated audience that shows up every week, and yeah, it's so much fun. Those are my thoughts on it. Jake, what do you think?
No, and Kelly and I have these conversations anyway, so it's just like, why don't we record them? Like why don't we share our conversations about the things that we find interesting?
Mhm.
And I think that, yeah, it's been fun, and it's nice to put something out there and then just there it is and see what happens with it, and not like a social media thing where you're checking, oh, did somebody like it? It's nice just to do it and know it's out there. And at least for me, that's kind of, and again, that's more my design, where I like that it's out there for people if they want to listen, and if they don't want to listen, then that's fine. I don't have to know if they're not listening.
Yeah, it's different than a social media post where it has metrics, and you can see metrics on a podcast, but you know what I mean. It's like likes or etc. The thing that always stood for me with the podcast, and I love seeing women step into this space. This is like a big, big thing for me. But when it comes to the podcast, is it has a life of its own, right? A social media post, it's like on today, gone later. It gets stuck like down the bottom algorithm. You never know if it's going to show back up. It might, but podcasts have a different life of their own. And I was listening to a call recently talking about AI and podcasts, and it was talking about how AI will be able to, like in a day, will be able to go through all podcasts and like index them. So, searchability wise, podcast wise, is a fantastic way to continue to be found. You are putting, I was like, oh, interesting. But they have a life of their own. Probably a year ago, somebody reached out to me and said, oh my gosh, I was listening to this episode. It was about this, and it has continued to follow since then. They're from Belgium. I've gotten a lot of other people who have followed since then. Like that episode she listened to was over 3 years old. So it has a life of its own, which I feel is almost a way. It's not working less, it's working smarter. Like it's a way of getting your message out in a different way. So I love that you guys do that. And finding your true north, what does true north mean to you?
It's so funny you should ask that, because we're interviewing our first podcast guest this afternoon for a future episode. We haven't had any guests so far. It's just been the two of us. And we kind of we want to be able to ask that question of people. And so for me, it's definitely knowing that the answers are inside. Because as Jacqueline said, for years, I looked outside myself, thinking that the answers were somewhere out there. And it really comes down to self-trust, knowing that that compass, and human design obviously helps with that, but that compass, that map, it's inside. If I take the time to get quiet, to listen, and to trust it, I know where to go. I know how to lead myself.
Mhm.
That's what it means to me.
And for me, it's all about peace. I lived my life definitely not at peace for a very long time. And my true north is living in peace with myself, peace with other people, peace in my environment. So for me, it's all about peace, which is also my signature in human design, which is just can't make it up.
Okay. So, as you're talking about that, even my brain was thinking, okay, finding your true north. And it's, I know there was a decision I've been sitting on for a while. And it's so funny as you get to know yourself, because I know that if I really get quiet, the reason I've sat on it for a while was because it's no. It was a no. I just didn't say no in the beginning. And it's always a learning curve when you start to learn, like, how do I know what a yes is? And even, I had a call with a client recently, and she was like, "Well, I don't understand. I don't even know what human design is." I'm like, "Well, how do you make a decision? Let's just even go there. How do you know when something is a yes for you?" And it was interesting because she was like, "I don't know. I don't know. I don't trust myself." And I'm like, "Okay, so this is where I feel coming back to yourself and learning a little bit more about how you make decisions and what works for you is really important."
Mm.
For sure. And that's one thing that when I learned, because you're in your human design, your authority
Mhm.
is your decision making guide. Both Jacqueline and I, we talked about this on an episode that we both were taught that successful people make decisions quickly.
Mhm.
And so that's how I made decisions. And I would make a decision, and then a day later, I would regret it. And when I learned that there are a number of authorities in human design, I am an emotional authority. You talked about being a sacral authority. But as an emotional authority, even though I might have that sacral hit,
Mhm.
um, I am not meant to make a decision in the moment. I'm not meant to make it quickly. I am meant to ride the emotional waves that I might have to bring myself back to a neutral position before I make a decision. And in learning about that, I now use that when I have to make an important decision. And it has just given me, again, so much more self trust in that, okay, this makes sense. I am happy now. This is the right decision because I allowed myself the waves.
Mhm.
Jacqueline tells stories. She's also an emotional authority, so she can tell you some stories about, making those decisions in the wrong way. But decisions are such an important part of our life. And most of us were taught to make them in our head. Like you think of the pros and cons list, like write out there all the pros and all the cons of your decision. Like that doesn't work for the majority of people.
Mm-mm.
We're not supposed to make decisions from our head. So human design has helped me learn that.
See, and I love that you said that for the reason of when I talk about NLP and subconscious reprogramming, that's your body is your subconscious mind. What is your body telling you? If you go to your head to make a decision, and I realize this might be the piece that a lot of people are like, "What are you talking about?" But when you go to your head, you are only making a decision based on all the information that led me to today. That's like my data bank of information that I know, which means I'll make decisions based on past information, not what is possible or what just feels good in my body. So I love that you explained it that way. And it has been an interesting, even taking where I talked about collaboration. I've taken the human design. My husband has no idea what this is, But I've looked at his and mine and I'm like, oh, okay, now I even understand it even more. Because I'm a sacral and I'm a sacral with a defined spleen. Like I'm like, yes, like this, right? Or I'm like, no. And he's an emotional authority and he's a sacral gender. And there's sometimes I'm like, oh my God, just make the decision, just make the decision. And that's not how he runs. And it actually helped me to understand how different we are, right? And that's okay that we are, but you can work with people a little bit better just to understand how they operate.
We often say that. We often say how much it gives us the capacity to offer grace to people because you're right. We aren't all the same. And once we know someone's design and we think, oh, okay, well, that makes sense now,
Mhm.
why they do that and why they drive me crazy. But, but that's, yeah, like that's the thing. Like, the majority of the world are emotional authorities. That's like the majority of people. Um, so most of us do need time to make a decision. The sacrals and the splenic authorities who make it just instantaneously,
Yeah.
we're jealous of them, we're envious, but they need to give us grace that we can't make that decision in the moment. We might feel, like as Kelly-Anne said, we might feel it and be
Mhm.
like, oh, it feels like a full body. Yes, for sure.
Mhm.
And I talk about on the podcast, like sitting at a bar and people saying we're going on a cruise. And I'm like, yes, we're going too. Like so excited. We're going, like we're looking at like itineraries. And I get in the car with my husband, not even like 3 hours later. And I'm like, I don't want to go on a cruise. And he's like, well, you just told, like he said, you were just all in there. And I said, yeah, because it sounded so exciting. But now that I think about it, I don't want to go on a cruise. So it's that ability to give the people that we love or the people that we work with grace and to say, okay, I understand now how you are different than me and that I have to allow for that. That's a huge gift for me. That's a huge gift that human design's given me.
It definitely gave me that. Like, it was definitely a moment of like, okay, now that makes sense because he's the emotional authority in our partnership and I'm very direct. And it's just, I know that I can be a lot sometimes. And I'm not even going to try and hide that, but I've learned to give grace in sometimes that it's like he just doesn't know. It's so funny because, as a sacral generator, I know I like specifics. So give me like 3 options. Don't say, what do you feel like doing? And I'm like, I don't know. Like, I need choices. So this sounds so silly if you're listening to this, but I'm telling you, it has been so helpful in how I work with people, who they are. I also take this into business. So when a client comes in, a potential client, I might do a discovery call and they're like, I don't know. I don't know. And I will ask sometimes, do you know what your authority is? And they're like, I'm an emotional authority. I'm like, great, go and make decisions. Like, I don't ever pressure anyone to make a decision because I always feel like if you do that, it's technically toxic money. It's got to come from the person. But it is interesting. And I didn't realize that a larger percentage of the population was an emotional authority.
Yeah.
Okay.
So, and obviously the world doesn't kind of, all the offers you see, right today, if you don't buy in today, it's going to be gone. This is,
It's not
um,
gone. It's gone. It's called marketing. People do that. And it's just like, I don't fall for that. But it's just so interesting. But I love how you're just sharing, like looking at it in an exploratory way from those sides. Am I allowed to ask a couple personal questions when it comes to this? Okay. I'm a 4/6 sacral generator. There is an inordinate amount of clients in my world that are twos. It's actually quite high, the number of clients that come my way that are twos. And a lot of times it is this piece of I could be completely wrong, but that it's, they want to be seen more or they see that I don't necessarily have that visibility, but no, it's not even an issue. Well, I'm probably digging a hole, but we're in a space of like, why is that certain like types, not types, what's it called?
Well,
Profile numbers are attracted to each other.
Well, as a 2 in my profile who has worked with you in the past and
Mhm.
has now registered for Outspoken,
Yep.
will be working with you again. I understand exactly what you're saying because that is one of the things that is attractive to me about you is that I tend to be, I've worked hard on it to become more visible, but as a two, it's really easy to hide because
Mhm.
that's our safe space. Like, and I need that quiet time, that alone time to hone my gifts. Um, but the hard part is getting out there and sharing them. You have no problem doing that. So that's what I see. And that's what other twos would see in you. That's just my, speaking as a two, that's what other people would see in you is that you don't have a problem doing that. I want what she has. I
Mhm.
want what she can do. And that ideally, that's who we search out to help coach us or to help teach us are the people who are doing the things that we want to do. Right. And I mean, I believe that if you see it in somebody else and you recognize it, it's available for you too. Um,
100%.
right. It's just maybe a little trickier for a two. It's out of their comfort. We usually way out of their comfort zone. I would say most twos that I've met, anyways, would characterize themselves as introverts.
Yep.
Maybe they're not all that way, but a lot of them would be. And so that visibility piece, that saying what you think, what you mean, being seen, that's harder
Mhm.
for sure.
Okay, thank you for sharing that because I think it's also when I look at twos that and then when I meet them, I'm like, okay, I feel like I can almost it's not telepathically, but I feel like I can see something in them that is available that they can like it's like I can see something in every single two I've ever worked with. I'm like, "Oh my God, do you know how incredible you are?" But we also know the importance of it's not about me telling a person what they have, it's how they see themselves. And that's what we want to be able to bring out is that people can see what is available for them.
And that's like a 2-4. It's important that their community bigs them up because that's how they're going to see that because their community is so important to them
Mhm.
that they don't need even the validation from outside, but they need their community to encourage them and to um, really point out all of the natural things that they have. And as I said, that they just think, well, that's nothing. Like anybody can do that.
Mhm.
Um, so they definitely need that validating, and their community is so important.
Amazing. Thank you for sharing that. That has just been something that comes up. It's actually quite interesting. I would say a very high majority of the time they are twos. And that's where honestly from a business perspective, I'm going to be very honest when I know that, I'll speak to it. Like I will speak to it because I feel like it calls people in. Like I want them to know they're safe in that experience too, right? I want nothing more than to see people step into what is available for them. Because I also feel when you do that, if using this example, then your people can find you and then their people can find like that's when you get to a really impactful ripple effect is because we have so many people with so many talents and gifts that aren't being seen. And if we can help them to be more seen, it just continues to help more people.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Exactly.
All right. So I was supposed to ask, I've been asked to ask this. Okay. So this is me. Is do you talk about channels? Can I ask about a channel? What
A
a channel
specific,
is? Yep, yep,
like us, you're going to give us a number.
yep.
I also,
We got it. We
I
got
don't
it.
be able to talk about it off the top of my head.
Okay, so you don't talk off the top of your head. I've been asked this, and I just want so I want to ask, and it's Christy. So there you go, Christy. You've asked the question. I
Okay.
have the channel of struggle,
Mhm.
and it's like that feels like that defines my entire life. Is that like does that when you have a channel like that, does that mean that that's like I don't believe it is, but that it's almost like an omen that that's what your whole life is going to be?
Omen. It's not an omen. It's your gifts, actually. The
Okay.
channels are your gifts.
Okay. I need to reframe the channel of struggle as a gift.
Mhm.
Can you help me do that?
I'm just trying to think the
Oh,
channel.
it's 3828.
Okay.
And it's tenacity and stubbornness. Well, Marsha, that's totally your gift. Like
Okay.
tenacity, I mean, how can that not be a gift? And stubbornness, like, and you talk a lot about
Tighter.
how your strength and your stubbornness, really, because I would say I don't have that channel, but I would say your your stubbornness to say what you need to say, to be vocal, to stand up for what is right. Like, to me, that's all part, I would say, of that channel. Um, and that's what's gotten you to where you are today.
Mm.
That's created the woman that you are.
So here's an example of a reframe right in the moment because I can hear channel of struggle and I'm like, oh my God, to struggle. Like, it's just why the word to me is like constrictive. It doesn't feel good at all. But to take it and go, no, your channels are your gifts. And the gift of that is tenacity and stubbornness. And so here's a beautiful example of like reframing it and seeing it for what it is.
Exactly. It goes on further to say it drives you to discover profound meaning by bravely fighting for what is right.
Oh, I need to put that on my website.
There you go.
So I think that some of the terms sometimes don't really make sense, for one
Mhm.
thing. Um, and some of them have kind of a negative connotation, especially some of the gates and channels. Some of them are called things that it's just like
The
that
names
doesn't
are not, I know they don't feel very positive.
right. So, like the transit this week is the gate of extremes. Well, it's not even really about extremes. It's basically about being flexible. But you hear extreme and you're like, whoa, that sounds like really heavy. Um, so yes, you have to really dive deeper into just the labels because we all know labels are only one little piece. And oftentimes, and that's even when we talk about like generators and manifestors and even some of the centers, like we were laughing on our podcast the other day about the splenic center. And it's like, don't tell people it's coming from your splenic center because they're going to think you're a weirdo. Like that's like, we like just use intuition. So, so there should be a reframe of all of the terms probably because some of them do have connotations that are not the most positive.
Mm.
Yeah, and one of the things I've talking to projectors, I've had so many people say a projector. That doesn't sound very good at all. It sounds like I project things onto other people. That no, actually it's a beautiful type. Like there's so much beauty in it. But I think, and even I'm a two line, the hermit, like those so much of the language, and I know language is so important, but so much of the language, I think, in human design, you really have to look past, as
Mhm.
Jacqueline said, the label
The
and
label.
see really what the intention is of the word.
I love that you did that because when I hear hermit and I talk to twos, I'm like, I like to say that the two is like you're actually so gifted at this, but you assume everyone knows how to do it and they don't. They don't. Like it's how can we get work that so you're right. Like words like that can make a big difference. But thank you for reframing that right in the moment because that was really powerful. That was just a different way. As soon as I heard struggle, I was like, why does it have to be that way?
Mhm.
It's fascinating. It's absolutely fascinating. How can people learn more about it? Like, can they come to you to learn more about the human design? Like, what does that look like?
Well, they can listen to the podcast.
Mhm.
That's a great place to start because we have our um, episodes are quite short and we try to make it very user friendly.
Mhm.
We've gone up all the way up to centers so far. So we've kind of gone through all the little different layers.
Okay.
We also do sessions with people
Mhm.
where we can do a private session where we can look at your chart. We just have a new website, and me as a one, I spent all of my time researching how to get this website sorted. So that was Kelly-Anne was just like, you go and do that.
I love
Um, so that should be live hopefully the next couple days.
Mhm.
So people can reach us there. I think having some people call them readings, some people just call them sessions. Having a session with someone who has studied human design is probably the best place to start,
Mhm.
so that you can start to embody it. We're also going to be, Kelly-Anne will tell you about one of our new offerings coming up.
Yeah, so we've had a few people. Christy was actually one of them.
Mhm.
Christy said, I would love to have almost a book club about the podcast. And we thought, like so much of what we want to do is we don't want you just to hear about this. We don't want you just to have a session and walk away. We want you to be able to embody this because it's really, as you know, like anything that you do, when you embody it, that you actually change your life.
100%.
So we want people to be able to embody, to experiment, and then come back and talk about it. What did you learn? Like, what did you see? What did you discover? Because there's so much to discover. So we are working on an offering where we will have kind of like a book club about human design. So we will gather, we will talk about one area, maybe do a little bit of teaching, but then talk about how are you seeing this in your life? How have you experimented with this? How, can you use the gifts of this that maybe don't feel like gifts? How can you reframe just what we did here with you? Like, how can you reframe this and really see how you can use human design to really live your life with more flow and ease? And that's what, I think Jacqueline and I have experienced, like finding that inner, whatever it is, what we call your signature, whatever it is that peace, that satisfaction, whatever it is for you, if you want to find that, if you want the tool of human design to make a difference in your life, you have to play around with it. And doing it in community is so much better than just trying to figure it out on your own. So that's what we're creating. We don't have it all put together yet. We are working on it. So yeah, if you're interested in something like that, then please reach out to us and we'll be able to fill you in on the details as they become available.
Okay, I love this idea. You said Christy mentioned this idea?
Christy came up, she was the one who said, I'd love to have a book club. She is one of our faithful listeners. She listens every week. And she said, I'd love to have a book club to be able to talk about these things. And it makes so much sense. Like Jacqueline and I talk about it together. And we have people we have each other to kind of, play around with things. But there really isn't a community to be able to do that. So we're going to create one.
How many times is this happened? It's so funny in business where it's like, oh, that's a neat idea. Do I like that? That feels good. It doesn't even exist. Let's look at that. Like the ideas can come out of left field. And I love this because, I've gone to, there's a free human design chart you can do online, but it doesn't mean anything unless you can start to learn what does it mean? Like, what does the numbers mean? What does that work? I've had people say to me, there's no way you can be like open head, ajna, and throat and podcast the way that you do. And I'm like, but the more I learned about it, I'm like, it actually makes sense because I hear ideas and out pops like 2 episodes. It's just my brain. But I also know that means that I can overconsume sometimes and I can take in too much. So learning some of these things has been actually really helpful. So I love that idea.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So we're pretty excited about it.
Speaking of coming soon, look at that tie. Can we talk about coming soon, the book? Can you just share your experience of writing in this book? This is Everybody Holds a Story, Volume 2. We at Outspoken are publishing it. Sue is like, it's her baby. She has just put her heart into this thing. So I want to hear from both of you what this experience has been like. Not that you're on the spot right now because we published it, but
So this was my first foray into authorship. I have written, I shouldn't say that, a book. I have written blogs and things like that. So I have done some writing. And obviously, as an ex-teacher, I've done a lot of writing. But this is the first time that I was involved in actually a printed, published book. I am a hard-nosed bibliophile. I love books. I love reading. So I can't believe it's taken me this long to actually get myself in a book. Um, but I wasn't exactly sure about it to begin with. Kelly-Anne was involved first. Um, as you know, I seem to have followed her in a lot of things she's done in her life. So I was like, okay, sure. And then I had a conversation with Sue and I said, I don't know if I have a chapter. And so she said, well, let's just talk. And so we talked about a few things. And then she said, well, there's your chapter right there if you want to write it.
Mm-hmm.
And I said, oh, okay. So I actually voice noted it. That's what I did to begin with.
Oh my gosh.
And then I wrote from my voice note. Um, and so it was a very quick process, actually, for me,
Mhm.
which is good. As a manifester, it was quick. I mean, okay, I'm going to do it. Let's do it. It's done. Um, and yeah, it feels good. It's been a good experience. I mean, it's going to be so awesome to actually see that hold the book.
I know. We've seen the pictures, we've seen the cover. It's so interesting because you were one of the last authors to come in, if I'm correct, Jacqueline, and probably one of the first to fully submit their their chapter. So it's just like you could tell like it was very, very well written. And I don't even know if it took a ton of edits. We had a little bit of work that we did with it,
Yeah,
but
very much. Yeah.
no, born writer, born writer. And speaking of born writers, Kelly-Anne, how was your experience?
So this was the second time that I contributed to a collaborative book. And 3 years ago, I wrote in one really to convince myself to disprove my belief that I was not a writer.
Mm-hmm.
Because I never believed I was. Jacqueline has always been a beautiful writer, and I always defer to her when we had to do any writing for the family or anything like that. And I didn't see myself as a writer at all. And so writing the first one was a really good experience for me as far as being able to share my story. Um, Reading Everybody Holds a Story, Volume 1, I realized that I actually wanted to be part of that because those stories were so powerful.
Mhm.
And when the opportunity came up, there was no question that I wanted to be involved. I wrote my chapter and I submitted it. And then as it was starting into edits, I messaged Sue and I said, I think I want to pull that chapter. I think I want to write a different chapter.
Mhm.
And so I did. And
Mhm.
she said, well, you could do that as long as you do it quickly.
Yeah, very
Um,
quickly, and you did.
Yeah. So I pulled that chapter and I wrote a different chapter. And it was a great experience. The whole, like, Sue has made it just so easy. So, I don't, well, and you too. I mean, I know Sue has been more in the weeds with everything,
Mhm.
but it has just felt compared to my last experience, which was with a different publisher. This has just been such a naturally flowing, beautiful process. So I am excited, so excited for the book to come out. And it's pretty special that Jacqueline and I are writing in the same book. I'm pretty thrilled about the honor.
Oh, it is special. It is. It's beautiful to have you both in, and I love how it feels like maybe the emotional authority wave started when you read the first book, and it was like, oh, that is. And Sue's shared that many times. It took a long time to get to there's a lot of grief involved with that first one to be able to bring the second one out. So to me, this second one is even more special. And what we went through in the publishing of that first one, and this is always my here comes the channel of struggle. It was that it was so difficult on all levels to get publishing done, to get it done, that we almost went I actually did say, "I'm never doing this again." Like, that was my message. I should have known. And then literally maybe 6 months later, that's when I went to Sue and I'm like, "What do you think about could we do this? Like, could we create this?" She's like, yes, we could do it in a heartbeat." And I mean, we did our first book. We kind of tested the waters of what it's looked like. And, we're in the process. We have 4 coming out this year, including Everybody Holds a Story. And we've grown our team to, I'm going to count wrong. I know I am. And so it's a lot. It's more than what it was. But it's beautiful because they're all in their lane. Like they're in their lane of strength. And that's just what makes it work. And I do deep down believe that everyone can have a great experience. I think the author can. I think that the people putting it together can. I feel like it's again, all of those past times of publishing, I did have the benefit of seeing it on all sides. I was a solo author. I was a lead collaborative author. I was a collaborative author. And finally it was like there's has to be a better way to do this because this is insane what we're watching. So not trying to be cryptic, but the power of like what feels like it's going incredibly wrong sometimes is the doorway to what you can do. And that was the aha moment of seeing this come together and, considering what we've done in even only 2 years. I'm really proud of it. I'm really proud of it. And what Sue has created is beautiful.
Yeah. That the channel of struggle.
A channel of
Here,
struggle.
look at the gift of the channel of struggle.
Tenacity and stubbornness.
Yeah. And look
There
what
you
you've
go.
created. You and Sue have created. So it's beautiful. Mhm.
Thank you, ladies. I love this. I'm so grateful to have you in the book. I love having you here today, sharing everything that you did. I'll make sure everything is in the show notes because there's so much value of what you offer. And I will share it when that episode comes out as well. I really do feel learning more about yourself in this way, it really does help you in all levels of, life and business. And I'm going to ask you my last question, which is always, what lesson in life are you most grateful for?
I can start.
Mm-hmm.
Learning that what you look for, you will find. That has changed everything for me.
That's a good one. That's a really good one.
And I think for me, it's taken a lot of years to learn, but that I can trust myself.
What a beautiful life lesson to have and be grateful for. I loved talking to you both. I could have talked for hours. I have so many other questions. Maybe we'll do a part 2. I loved having you here. Thank you so much, Kelly-Anne and Jacqueline.
Thank you,
Thanks,
Marsha.
Marsha.
It's wonderful.
Thank you for tuning in to another episode of Own Your Choices, Own Your Life. I invite you to tag me on social media with your takeaways or share it with a friend. If you feel called, please leave a 5-star review and I would be forever grateful. Until next time, remember, when you own your choices, you own your life.